Hi everybody, this is Jeff from Robotics, and this is part 2 of my CTC 3D printer unboxing and test. Last time we got everything out of the box and looked at all of the parts. So this time what I'm going to do is make sure everything is intact and then give it a quick test run. Hopefully everything works right. During our unboxing we found a few extra parts, including these little 3D printed brackets. And what they are feet for the printer. They fit just as so. They don't stay very well, so my solution was to use some hot glue, and that seemed to work all right. However, I already needed to remove one because I found our other problem, where that mysterious nut and washer came from. Well, this is an example of that. It's not the exact one, but one that I had to remove because here, holding the buttons for the LCD and controller, one of the nuts worked itself loose and fell off during shipping. So I just tightened everything down, including went through the printer and tightened down all of the extra nuts and bolts just to make sure that everything is secure. So clearly the printer isn't ready to go right out of the box, and there's still a few pieces of hardware to go through, but right now it's looking pretty close and I think we're getting ready for our test. I've got the bottom panel back on now and we're ready to put on the extruder and give it a test drive. So I'm sitting here at my desk with the printer all assembled. I don't have any filament in the extruders yet. We're going to install the SD card, power it up, and see what happens. SD card goes right here. Alright, let's power it up. Well, I think we're going to try to enable the steppers first and see what happens. Heard a little bump there. And then that option changed to disable steppers. Let's try home axes. It has little end stops on it, so it shouldn't be a problem, but I guess we'll find out, and we can always kill the power if something bad happens. And here we go. We have a little bit of movement. Get the camera fixed there for you. If you can see here, this far left extruder nozzle is right up against the corner of the build plate, and it looks like it's even a little lower, so there might need to be a little of adjustment there before we actually get started, but it seemed to find the corner okay. We'll go ahead and keep messing around with it. Well, now that we've homed the printer, what we're going to try to do is level the build plate. Like I said, it still is off its corner a little bit, but I've never really used any bed leveling, so we're going to see what happens there. There's a little message on the screen that says, find the 4 knobs on the bottom of the platform and tighten 4 or 5 turns. So let's find those knobs and tighten those. So there's little wing nuts underneath here, 4 of them. And I've just given them a little bit of twist, and now I see another message that says I'm going to move the extruder to the various positions for adjustments, and we'll hit M again. Here we go. Adjust the front 2 knobs until paper just slides between nozzle and plate. Alright, so it looks like this is actually quick little built-in tutorial on how to level the bed. It seems pretty decent so far. I don't think I'm going to go through and video the whole entire process because it could be a little more tedious than we'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and get this leveled and then come back when it's all ready to go. Well, I finally got the bed leveled. It took about 4 tries and about 15 minutes. So that wasn't entirely too hard, but it's the first time I've actually used bed leveling, so I suppose that's the normal learning curve. I also played around with the SD card a little bit and found some very useful information on that. For the printer software, I'm going to be using the Repetier host because that's what I'm used to and that's what my other printer had. This is actually a MakerBot, which should be compatible, but we're going to see if we can find out if this printer will actually work with it. When I initially plugged it into the computer, it tried to install its own software, and as you can see on the screen, it said the software was not successfully installed. We'll see if that's going to be a problem, so I'll close that out. So here we are in the SD card, and it gives you several folders and files. I'm not really sure what all of them are, but when we open up the user manual, we find this. Now, in everything that I've seen online, all the information is in Chinese. However, this is very much in English, and it's not entirely too hard to understand. When you read through it a little bit, you can see that it was clearly translated, but the main information's there, so that's actually helped me out a lot. It goes through the setup and how to level your build plate, how to add the filament, your general printer settings, and of course some general maintenance. Now, when I tried to install the software, or when I first plugged it in, it said that the driver wasn't found. So I looked through the manual and I found in here that there is a driver package. I went ahead and installed Python again, even though I already have it on my computer. And then in the drivers, I'm using a 64-bit system, but there's also a 32-bit version as well. I installed that, and about 10 minutes later, I tried it again, and I connected to my typical Repetier host 3D printing software. So it looks like it reads it and that it's ready to go. Well, I'm going to get ready to do a test print here, and right now I'm trying to add some filament to it. I haven't installed that yet. I went ahead and went to the menu to change the filament, and if you can read what's on here, it says please wait while I heat my extruder, so that's pretty friendly. It says I'm ready, pull the guide tube off and push the filament through. We don't have a guide tube on there. They didn't go in there very well, so I'm not really sure which one I use. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got my filament up here. I'm attempting to push it through. Seems to be going in, but I'm really curious to know if I'm even going in the right one, because there's another hole beside it that didn't seem to want to take it. This goes in eventually, but nothing comes out. Well, I've taken off one of the fans just to inspect the extruder unit here. I don't know if you can see this, but just between the tube and the extruder, if I can point to it here with this, right in between here, there's a little bit of garbage in there, and I'm going to try to clean that out. I might have to remove the hot end nozzle, which looks like it's just connected by that one little Allen head. So I'll go ahead and take that out and give that a quick little cleaning and put her back together and see if that works. Well, I took everything apart on the extruder. As you can hear, that beeping means that I'm ready to give it another shot. So I haven't added the screws back in yet, so you can see that the extruder module can come off of there pretty easily. I'm not going to print with it just yet. I'm going to try to load the filament and see how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the prompts. And it says to shove this filament in here until it feel the tug. And there it goes. And it seems to be going further than it did last time. Yep, it's definitely going in. Alright. And you can see it's coming out. And it's a little hot. So I'm going to go ahead and push M and stop that. And we have filament. So now we're ready to try a print. Well, here it goes. The CTC printer's maiden voyage. I've corrected the filament problem, and I had to do another bed realignment, which took a lot longer than the first one. I found a few problems going through this, so I'll talk about those at the end of the video. But let's just take a look here. It looks like it's definitely printing something. You can't really tell right now. I expected it to be a cube, but it's looking more like the letter Z. I guess it'll be a mystery. On our LCD, we can keep track of our temperatures. Our extruder's at 193 Celsius out of 195, so that's pretty good. Our platform's at 62 out of 60, so that means it's staying pretty hot. At the top here, you see our print settings, and it is at 7%, so I'm expecting this to get done relatively quickly. Here we're at about 31%. It's actually printing pretty fast. It looks okay. I've never really seen PLA print before, and it looks a little soft around the edges, but I've checked on the temperatures, and it is supposed to print between 180 degrees Celsius and 220 Celsius, so that's about right. And the bed temperature is supposed to be between 60 and 65 degrees Celsius. So our print settings are good, and we just hit 33%. I'm interested to see what this little shape will be. We're at 57% now, and it's definitely looking a lot more cube shaped. As you can see on the edge there, it's got some type of a divot in the bottom of it. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, so we'll have to take a look at the finished piece when it gets all done and cooled off. By the look of it, this whole print will take probably about 15 minutes. And now we've finished with our first piece. So, congratulations, our printer has finally done its job. Let's take a look at it here. Comes off pretty easily. It is PLA. As you can see, you can still see some of the lines and edges in there. And it's printed in a really light infill. It's got some support material, so that's not a mistake. That should just come right off of here. And had some sort of issue right there at the edge. But let's take a look. It should be 20 by 20 by 10, I'm guessing. So we'll go ahead and use the caliper to get a measurement on this and see what it comes up with. So that's not bad. That's 2005 that direction. And that's 1997 that direction. And I doubt this is going to be 10 because of the support, but that's 1141. So essentially what we have is a 20 by 20 by 10 millimeter cube, and it honestly didn't print all that bad. It doesn't look perfect clearly, but it's not real bad, especially for the first print, and that's why you print something like this the first time you have a go at your printer, because you need a test piece to calibrate it. So we can make a few adjustments and hopefully get this printing a lot better later. I think we've accomplished our mission here by getting this printer up and running, and now it's time for the review. So let's talk about the unboxing and the quality of the printer. First of all, the printer was obviously packaged very well. It looked very tight and looked like they put a lot of thought into it. Once you get it out of the box, however, there seems to be a couple of issues that I'd like to cover really quick. First of all, they give you a bit of extra hardware and some tools and no real direction on what that's for, if it's necessary, or if you're going to need it or not. So that was a little concerning. Which brings me to the owner's manual or the user manual. Well, clearly I did find one eventually, and it was in the SD card. But there was no indication in the box anywhere that that's where that I would find it. And looking online, there's hardly any documentation that I could find that wasn't in Chinese. So at least they could maybe give you a quick page of instructions that says, put the SD card in your computer, look in this file, and find your actual user's manual. So, but once you get to the user's manual, the documentation is pretty straightforward and simple. So that was all right. Well, let's go to the quality of the printer now. It seems to be put together fairly decent. There were a few shortcuts it looks like the manufacturer made, but those can be overlooked if you want to continually maintain your printer, which you really should do anyway. The biggest concerns with me were the extruder had a jam in it, or at least one of them had a jam in it that I needed to manually fix. Well, I'm experienced with 3D printers, so I knew what I was doing, but if this is your very first printer, you might run into a problem and not really know where to go with that unless you actually know somebody that knows how to fix a printer. The other thing was some of the bolts had shaken loose during the shipping process, even though it was packed real well. And if I would have tried to run it just like it was, I feel like some of that would have shaken apart more. The last issue was the bed leveling. I did say this was my first attempt trying to ever level a printer bed because everything I've used before never needed it, or at least it didn't come with that option. It wasn't hard to figure out, and it did in the end only take me a little while. However, it was mounted, the build plate was mounted on 4 little springs that would adjust as you tighten the bolts. When you tighten one of the bolts, it actually started to spin on the bottom of the build plate, so I needed to get in there with some needle nose and grip it, which was very awkward, and it didn't really work that well, but I did manage to make that work. Other than that, the general quality of the printer seemed okay. The first print turned out fairly decent, maybe an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 for what you can actually expect from the first print. I feel that there is a lot of quality to be gained later on, but like I said, I'm not real concerned with it. Did it work right out of the box? Absolutely not. Did it work within 20 minutes of setup like so many of the reviews? Nope, not 20 minutes either. More like maybe a couple hours if you really hit it hard and knew what you were doing with very minimal problems. But did it work? Yeah, it worked. And am I going to keep using it? Absolutely. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to see what kind of magic I can make on it. So that's the end of this review. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure and give me a thumbs up. And remember to subscribe to this channel to see more projects like this and more projects that I can do on this printer and all of the tools and items you see behind me. Now, while this is the end of this video here and the end of part 2, I may consider doing a part 3 as well. I've pretty much said all I can say about the printer, but I have 2 extruders on there and I've only used one so far. So maybe we'll try a test print with using 2 materials at the same time or 2 different colors and see what kind of things we can make with that. Anyway, I haven't really decided yet, so check back again and see if there's a part 3. Otherwise, check back my channel often and we will see some more projects coming up. Until then, take care. Rick Robotics thanks you.